Hello everyone, this video will introduce you to Module 2. So Module 2 is our first module with some creative work in it, and we're going to start with creative nonfiction. So creative nonfiction is one of the genres in your textbook. There are 4 genres total, and we start with creative nonfiction because students are often a little bit more familiar with it because it has a lot to do with personal writing. So I like to think of creative nonfiction as like a memoir where it's sort of autobiographical. So you're telling a story about yourself using your own experience, but you add a lot of the creative elements that a fiction story would have. So if you were telling your life story as if it were a story about someone else, that would be creative nonfiction. So you're really emphasizing the story elements in it. So let me just show you what you're going to be working on in this unit. Your major work is the creative nonfiction photo essay, which is our first creative work that you're doing besides like the discussion board. And the other thing that you have is your first quiz. So we'll have 4 chapter quizzes throughout the semester, 1 for each of the chapters. And so this is the one where you will need the textbook for it. If you're having difficulty getting the textbook and can't get it before the end of this unit runs out, just send me an email and I can extend the due date for you because we have had quite a few problems with textbooks. So you read the chapter and then you'll take the quiz. The quiz is one that you can just take as many times as you need to kind of run through it. So even if you don't have the book, you might just take a look at the quiz and the questions and kind of see what you should be looking for. But this is the chapter and what it will look like. And then the quiz is pretty standard. And then the other part of this module is to work on your first creative work. And this is just some information about formatting. And so I've got some examples here of what I expect for your formatting. That way everybody's looks roughly the same. When you're doing any kind of story writing, I would like for you to format it essentially like MLA. With the Times New Roman size 12 font and everything. Double spacing is really helpful just for screen reading. If you don't double space, it's really hard for me to see and it's hard for me to leave comments. And then the other thing I have linked in here is the online writing lab. So if you're new to Allen or it's been a while since you've taken a writing class, we've changed our online tutoring. And you actually access it over here underneath BrainFuse Online Tutoring. And you click on that and there will be an option to select a writing lab draft, and then they'll send your file in that way. And then it will come back to you in BrainFuse rather than going to your email. This system has worked fairly well so far. It's fairly new. We have had a few problems with students not being able to get feedback in time or get feedback that they can read. But for the most part, it's worked pretty well for our writing center director. So if you have any questions, you can email him directly. It is not required to use the online writing lab, but since this is your first creative work, you may want to get some feedback. You're welcome to use the online writing lab, although they are, most of what they do is academic style essays. So the feedback that you get will be more academic. You can also send it to me. You're welcome to email me any work from this class just to see whether or not you're doing it correctly. And I absolutely don't have a problem giving you some feedback right away. It's not cheating to do that. But since I'm not actually grading this, you are, you may decide that you just want to submit it the way it is and just kind of see what my feedback is. So this is the essay requirements. So each of your major assignments that are creative work will have a requirements page or a criteria page. And sometimes they're just linked to where you actually submit the assignment, which for some reason is not open. So what you're going to be doing is picking a photograph that you have in your collection of photos, and I want you to use that photograph as inspiration to write a story. So You're going to basically tell us the story behind the photograph. We want to understand that it is a story from a photo. So you should include the photo somehow in the story. Sometimes students start with, they see the photo and then they remember the memory. That's fine. And then sometimes students include the moment that the photograph was taken in the story, which also works really well. But your minimum 500 words is not very long, but most of you will get probably 2 pages out of it, I would guess, depending on the event where the photograph was taken. And so you just want to tell us the story behind it. We're trying to use as much descriptive detail as possible, try to use your senses, try to recreate the world, try to really explain. You don't necessarily have to explain your physical characteristics so much as like the internal, your emotional feelings, that kind of thing, how you were doing on that day. Try to just build it for us in a story form. And then because this is creative nonfiction, it's a blend of true facts and creative style. So obviously it needs to be factual, but we don't want just a list of the things that you did. We want that creative description, really trying to think about how poetic can you make it sound. So a lot of students pick a photograph that involves nature in some way, a hike or something that they took, just a vacation. That way they've got some really good sensory details to include. Make sure that it's vivid, make sure it's believable. You don't need to include dialogue, but if you want to, make sure it's formatted correctly. If you're not sure how to do that, don't worry about it. We'll be talking about dialogue more with the fiction stories. And then please make sure that you actually include the photo with the essay, because otherwise sometimes it's hard for me to really understand what students are writing about. So put that in there. And then obviously, again, since I'm not grading the work in this semester, you will be taking the self-assessment quiz. In the self-assessment quiz, there will be questions about your photo essay. And so once you go through it, you will see and it's basically whether or not you met the requirements. Did your photo essay include? Did your photo essay include? And true, false. And so if you have to mark false for something because you didn't do something in the photo essay, you're more than welcome to rewrite the essay and then submit it again to make a correction if you need to. And you can do that with all of your work this semester. If you go through the self-assessment quiz, realize you did not meet the criteria for the assignment, rather than marking yourself off on the quiz, you can redo the assignment and submit that. If you don't, so if you mark yourself as true on the quiz that you did it, and then I read your work and you didn't do it, then I will go through your quiz and I will correct your error there. So just kind of keep that in mind. I do keep track of when students are doing the quizzes correctly as well. So that's the module. And then again, the journal is in here, the journal assignment you can work on all semester. So I recommend that you do one like every other week or something, but some students really like to use this journal just to keep their creative work in there. And this could be work that you've already worked on. This could be work that you're doing for something else. So it may be another class, just as long as it's not the same as the assignments that you're submitting, because that would be redundant to submit it twice. This is really just a creative space. You can do the writing that you feel uncomfortable sharing within the other areas of the class. That's fine. But this is just your space to journal. Use it like a journal. And then you can do each entry separately. Sometimes students will just upload a different file for each entry, and sometimes they'll just do one long one and they'll submit the whole thing at the end of the semester, and that's fine. So it's however you prefer to upload your journals. So that is Module 2. If you have any questions, send me an email. Otherwise, stay warm and have a great week.